All right, thought I would do a little special edition Way Happy Studios factoring trinomials video. So here you go. I'm going to steal off of the internet. This is just a worksheet that I found, and I'm going to do number 4 there. That looks good. N squared plus 4n minus 12. So I have n squared plus 4n minus 12. And how do I factor that? Well, remember that this is they're of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. And so what I do when I factor is I make this weird x and I say, all right, first I got to multiply a and c together. And I have to, hopefully I won't have to do this forever and copy down b. So a times c is 1 times negative 12, so that's negative 12. And b is 4. And so that's what you have to do. You have to sit here and think, what numbers multiply to negative 12 but can add up to 4? So really, what is your job? To think of all the factors of 12. You're like 12 and 1, you're like 6 and 2, you're like 3 and 4. That's about it. Will any of those add up to 4? Now keep in mind, one of them's got to be negative. So the 1 or the 12, the 6 or the 2, the 3 or the 4, one of them's got to be negative to multiply to negative 12. And they got to add up to 4. And you're like, oh yeah, it's right there, right? You're like, I see it. It's 6 and 2. Now, why 6 and 2? Because one of them is positive, one of them is negative. The 2 would have to be negative in order to add up to 4. Now you can look at my little x here and you'd be like, yeah, if you add them together, you get 4, the bottom number. If you multiply them, you get negative 12. So I know I found the correct factors. So these are my winners right here. And now you just use the variable. You're like, cakewalk. N plus 6 and n minus 2. Those are your factors, and I'm good. Finished. Don't phase me, right? And that's all it is. That's really all it is. All right, but the big problem comes in if a is a number. That's when people start to panic. This one seems to work really well, the one we just did. But when people start to panic is when our good friend a is not is a number. So look here at number 6. 2n, 5n, and 2. So let me look at this one. So I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to have 2n squared plus 5n plus 2. I want to factor that. Well, luckily, I'm going to show you 3 methods right now. All 3 methods start the same way. Besides the one method that I learned when I was in high school. When I was in high school, they told us to just guess and check, right? They said, hey, you know what multiplies to 2n? Do 2n and 1n. Now they're like, what multiplies to 2 is 1 and 2. And your job here is to fill in like a +1 or a +2 and do the opposite here and foil in your head and see which one is the fastest, which one is correct. And at that point, you'll be done. And that's a really good method. And I think that helped me be a good math student, was just sitting here and guessing and checking, right? Where right now, I would be sitting here going, why is this not erasing is what I'd be doing. I would be going, all right, let's FOIL that out. 2n squared plus 4n plus 1, and hey, that's 5n plus 2. I got it. And I would jump up and down. Well, maybe you want a method. And so again, my little madness of this x works really well. You have a, c, you have b. Remember, it's got to multiply to that. It's got to add up to that. A times c is 4, and this is 5. So now you sit here and you guess what 2 numbers multiply to 4 that add up to 5. Hey, I know it. It's 4 and 1. Right? Same thing we did last time. Now here's the catch. Because there was a number in front of n, you got to divide these both by that number. And those are your 2 factors. You have n plus 4 over 2, and you have n plus a half. And if you can reduce the fraction, please do so, because math people love that. So that becomes n plus 2. And here's where it gets its name, bottoms up. Bottoms up says take this bottom number, move it up in front because the fraction didn't reduce. And you have 2n plus 1. And there are your 2 factors that I also got way back in my method. Well, this is called bottoms up, right? And that's the way bottoms up. That's the way I do it, and you'll see me do it in class or on videos. There's another way, though, which they're kind of all built off the same thing. I know Ms. Durov is a fan of what I like to call split the middle term. So if I do that method now, I'll show you what split the middle term is. She does the same thing. She says, okay, what 2 numbers multiply to 4 that add up to 5? And you guess and check and you think and you go, oh, it's 4 and 1. And then she says, all right, now I want you to rewrite that middle term, that 5n. She's like, I want you to rewrite it. So 2n squared. Now instead of 5n, I'm going to put plus 4n plus 1n plus 1. And she says, all right, now there's another factoring technique that says, I want you to what's called factor by grouping. Look at the first two things. What would you factor out? The greatest common factor. And you go, oh, a 2n. And what would you be left with? You say n plus 2. Oh, sorry. Notice that this should be a 2 from the problem up above. And then here you copy down this symbol. And then you look at these two, the other group. What do they have in common that you could factor out? Like, darn it, nothing. All right, then we got to pull something out. Let's call it a 1. And what would be left? What would be we left with? N plus 2. And then what you notice in her method is you go, oh my gosh, here's an n plus 2. Here's an n plus 2. That's one factor. Let's factor it out. When we factor it out, it's gone. What are we left with? 2n plus 1. And guess what? You just got the two factors using a different method called split the middle term. Now, the last method I'll show you is called the box method. Now, it's kind of the reverse box. You know, if you use the box for foiling, this is the reverse of it. You do the exact same thing. You're going to draw the x. You're going to say what two things multiply to 4, what two things add up to 5. You're going to figure out it's 4 and 1. And it's kind of like the split the middle term method, where in the first box, you're going to put the first thing, 2n squared. In the last box, you're going to put the 2. And what goes in the middle box is these guys. I don't care where you put them. Let's do 4n and 1n. And now the box method says, all right, I just want you to factor something out. So what could we factor out of here? Well, they both have a 2n in common. What could we factor out of here? Nothing. Maybe just a 1. What could we factor out of here? An n. What could we factor out of here? A 2. And right here would be your two factors. One factor, n plus 2, and one factor, 2n plus 1. And notice we got the same answer every time, which makes sense because we were doing the same problem every time. And there's 3 different methods: bottoms up, split the middle term, and the box method. Pick your favorite, get good at it, and make sure you can factor. Awesome. Have a great day. Stay happy.